In the United States, the average person over 60 is living with more than 30 years' worth of unreviewed possessions, items tucked in drawers, stacked in basements, and hidden in boxes you haven't opened in decades. But here's the part nobody talks about. The weight you feel isn't just from dusty photo albums or an overcrowded pantry. The real chaos shows up in places you don't expect. Your crammed calendar, your endless phone notifications, even in the friendships and obligations you've been carrying out of habit, not joy. It's the unspoken clutter that steals your time, your energy, and your peace. What if I told you that by looking beyond the physical mess, you could reclaim a kind of freedom you haven't felt in years? That's exactly what we're diving into today, not just decluttering your home, but every part of your life that quietly drains you. And before we begin, if you're ready to heal the chaos and finally feel free again, hit like and subscribe, because this is the season to live lighter, live better, and enjoy the chapter you're in. Fenola Rae was 67 years old, living in a charming shingled home on the rocky coast of Maine. A retired high school English teacher, she had spent decades shaping young minds, organizing school plays, and coaching after-hours writing clubs. She was known in her community for her warmth, her willingness to help, and her knack for making everyone feel heard. Even in retirement, she was still the person people called first, whether it was a neighbor asking for help with a fundraiser, a friend needing a last-minute ride to the doctor, or a former student wanting her advice on a big life decision. From the outside, her life looked full in all the best ways. But inside, Finola was exhausted. Her days were crammed with commitments, her phone buzzed endlessly with requests, and her evenings, once meant for quiet reading by the fire, were now spent catching up on unfinished tasks. Her home was tidy by most standards, but there were corners piled with projects she never finished, kitchen drawers stuffed with just-in-case items, and a dining table that seemed to attract stacks of mail and papers no matter how many times she cleared it. She wasn't a hoarder. In fact, she had always prided herself on keeping things reasonably organized. But over the years, she had said yes far more often than she said no. Yes to keeping things she didn't truly need. Yes to commitments that drained her energy. Yes to friendships that had quietly become one-sided. It wasn't just her house that was cluttered, it was her entire life. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Finola was halfway through making a pot of chowder when her phone rang for the 6th time that day. Another request, another obligation. She looked around her kitchen and noticed something she'd never truly seen before. The counters were covered with unopened mail, half-used ingredients, and gadgets she hadn't touched in years. It wasn't the mess itself that got to her, it was the feeling that her life had become a series of scattered, unfinished moments. That night, she sat with a cup of tea and realized she couldn't keep living like this. But instead of running to clean out her closet like most decluttering advice suggests, she chose a different starting point, one that most people overlook entirely. And that single decision would change everything about how she approached not just her home, but her time, her relationships, and her peace of mind. Finola didn't start with her closet, she started somewhere most people ignore. Step 1. Declutter your space, the visual calm reset. When most people think of decluttering, they imagine tackling an entire room, emptying the attic, clearing the garage, or diving into a closet that hasn't been touched in years. But here's the problem with that approach, it's overwhelming before you even start. If you're over 60, your time, energy, and focus are precious. You don't need a project that eats up an entire weekend. You need a change you can see and feel right away. That's why Fenola's first step wasn't about deep cleaning or sorting every single thing she owned. It was about creating an instant visual calm reset. The idea is simple but powerful. Choose one high-impact daily view and clear it completely. This isn't just any spot in your home, it's a space you look at multiple times a day, without fail. For Finola, it was her kitchen counter. Every time she walked in from her morning walk, that counter greeted her with a jumble of prescription bottles, coffee filters spilling out of a box, yesterday's mug still by the sink, and a leaning stack of unopened mail. It wasn't a huge mess, but it was constant. And constant clutter sends a constant message to your brain, there's more to do. You're not finished yet. In the US, this clutter hotspot often takes the same form: kitchen counters, a bedside table stacked with books and lotion bottles, the top of a dresser holding sunglasses, loose change, and a tangle of charging cords. It's the place where everyday life piles up without you noticing. And because you see it all the time, it slowly chips away at your sense of calm. Fenola's solution was something she now calls the one-sweep rule. She gave herself 15 minutes, not a minute more. She took one large laundry basket, swept everything off the counter into it, and placed the basket in another room. Then, she returned to the empty counter and cleaned it quickly with a damp cloth. The effect was immediate. The space looked open, bright, and peaceful. Here's where the magic happened. By removing everything at once, she didn't get stuck in decision-making mode. She could go through the basket later, when she wasn't standing in the middle of the mess. That separation of clear first, decide later made the process feel light instead of exhausting. Within that 15-minute window, she went from feeling like her kitchen was another source of stress to feeling like it was a place she actually wanted to be. And that sense of accomplishment carried into the rest of her day. The next morning, she walked in to make coffee and felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. For you, it might be the nightstand you see first thing in the morning and last thing at night, the coffee table you pass on your way to the kitchen, or the entryway table where keys, mail, and receipts pile up. The spot doesn't have to be large, it just has to be visible, daily. Because here's the truth, the quickest way to heal chaos isn't to conquer every inch of your home, it's to reclaim the view that greets you most often. That one clear space sends a new message to your brain: you're in control. You can breathe here. What's the one spot in your home that feels heavy every time you look at it? Tell me in the comments. I bet clearing it will give you more relief than you expect. Step 2. Declutter your calendar, the silent chaos killer. If physical clutter drains your eyes and energy, calendar clutter quietly drains your days, and you often don't notice until you're exhausted, irritable, and wondering why you never seem to have time for yourself. For many seniors in the United States, especially those over 60, this happens in a surprisingly sneaky way. After retiring or cutting back on work, your calendar doesn't always empty, it just fills with different obligations. There are the volunteer positions you agreed to just for a few months that somehow turned into years. The weekly community group meetings you attend mostly out of habit. The endless list of grandkid events you feel you can't miss, from soccer games 2 towns over to last-minute school recitals. Add in church activities, neighborhood projects, medical appointments, and just a quick coffee catch-ups, and suddenly your week looks busier than it ever did when you were working full-time. Fenola Rae knew this feeling all too well. As a retired teacher, she had a reputation for showing up, pitching in, and never saying no. Her calendar looked like it belonged to someone running a small company, color-coded boxes for every day, with hardly an afternoon left blank. At first, it felt good to be needed. But over time, she noticed she was rushing through mornings, grabbing meals on the go, and never having a slow, quiet afternoon to simply read by the fire or take a walk along the coast. Her wake-up call came one Thursday when she realized she had agreed to attend 3 separate events in one day: a friend's book launch, a church volunteer shift, and her neighbor's dinner invitation. None of them were bad things, but together, they left her feeling drained, distracted, and short-tempered. That's when she created her 3-yes rule, a simple filter for every new commitment. Before agreeing to anything, she asked herself 3 questions. 1. Is this energizing? Will I feel glad I did this afterward, or will I feel worn down? 2. Is it aligned? Does this match my priorities for this season of life? 3. Is it manageable? Can I do it without rushing, rearranging my week, or neglecting rest? If the answer wasn't yes to all 3, she said no, politely but firmly. In just 1 week, Finola cancelled 3 standing commitments that no longer brought her joy: a monthly committee meeting she dreaded, a weekly volunteer shift that had become stressful, and a recurring lunch with an old acquaintance that always left her feeling emotionally drained. The relief was immediate. Not only did her calendar look lighter, but she also had entire afternoons open to do things that truly mattered to her, like painting, visiting the beach, or simply taking a nap without feeling guilty. This kind of decluttering doesn't happen in a closet. It happens in the small boxes of time you've given away to things that no longer serve you. And when you take them back, you don't just gain hours, You gain energy, focus, and a deep sense of peace. The best part? Every no you give to something draining is actually a yes to something life-giving. And while clearing your calendar can bring huge relief, there's still another kind of clutter, one that doesn't live in your home or your schedule at all, yet still eats up your time and mental space. Step 3. Declutter your digital world, the hidden time thief. You can clear your counters, organize your closets, and lighten your calendar, but there's a kind of clutter that slips through all those efforts, the kind you can't touch but still weighs heavily on your mind. It's the digital clutter that lives in your phone, your inbox, and the constant stream of alerts that demand your attention. For many seniors in the United States, this has become one of the most overlooked yet exhausting forms of chaos. Scam emails arrive daily, often disguised as urgent messages from the bank or Medicare. Facebook groups you joined years ago now fill your feed with endless posts you don't even care to read. And then there's the non-stop ping of your phone, texts, news alerts, special offers, and reminders that pull your attention away from the very moments you want to enjoy. Fenola Rae realized this was a problem one Saturday morning when she sat down to have her first cup of coffee by the window. She planned to enjoy the view of the harbor, watch the gulls circle, and maybe read a chapter from her favorite novel. But instead, she checked her phone. Within 15 minutes, she had opened 4 scam-looking emails, clicked into a Facebook post about a community argument that had nothing to do with her, and responded to 2 urgent group texts that could have easily waited until later. By the time she set the phone down, she felt tense, distracted, and oddly tired, and her coffee was cold. That's when she decided to try something she now calls her 10-minute digital detox. Here's how it worked. 1. Set a timer for 10 minutes, no more, no less. 2. Delete without reading. Any email from an unknown sender or company she didn't recognize went straight to trash. No opening just to check. 3. Leave or mute Facebook groups. If the group didn't bring joy, encouragement, or useful information, she left it. For ones she wanted to keep but found too noisy, she muted notifications. 4. Silence non-essential notifications. She went into her settings and turned off alerts for everything except calls from her closest contacts and reminders she truly needed. 5. Review screen time. Using Apple's built-in screen time feature, she checked where her phone use was highest and set small daily limits for the apps that were stealing the most hours. In just 10 minutes, she cut her incoming digital noise in half. The next morning, she noticed something she hadn't felt in a long time: quiet. No fake urgent emails. No distracting pings during breakfast. And when she did pick up her phone, it was to connect intentionally, not out of habit. This wasn't about becoming a tech minimalist or deleting everything. It was about taking control over what got her attention. She even signed up for AARP's Fraud Alert emails, a free service that warns you about the latest scams targeting seniors, so she could stay informed without constantly worrying about what might be real and what was fake. Digital clutter may be invisible, but its impact is real. It can raise your stress, shorten your attention span, and rob you of the very moments you want to savor. So ask yourself, do you think your phone adds to or reduces your stress? Because the answer might tell you whether it's time for your own 10-minute digital detox. Step 4. Declutter your relationships, loving without the weight. Not all clutter sits on a shelf or clogs up a calendar. Some of it lives in the spaces between people, the invisible weight of relationships that drain you instead of nourishing you. And for many seniors in the United States, especially after 60, this emotional clutter can be harder to clear than any garage or attic. This isn't about cutting people out of your life at the first sign of trouble. It's about recognizing when a relationship consistently costs you more than it gives back, when every interaction leaves you feeling depleted, anxious, or resentful. Sometimes it's a friend who calls only when they want to vent, a neighbor who always needs a favor but never offers help in return, or even adult children who rely on you for more than is healthy, leaving you with no space for your own needs. Fenola Rae faced this with one longtime friend, Clara. They'd known each other for decades, and at one point their connection had been a source of joy. But over the years, the friendship had shifted. Every phone call became an hour-long list of complaints about neighbors, politics, the weather, her health. No matter how Finola tried to steer the conversation toward lighter topics, it always returned to the same negative loop. She'd hang up the phone feeling emotionally wrung out, her mind replaying Clara's grievances instead of enjoying her own evening. At first, she told herself, "This is what good friends do, you listen." But one afternoon, after ending yet another draining call, she looked at the clock and realized she'd just lost an entire hour she could have spent painting or taking a walk by the harbor. And she knew the next day would bring the same pattern. That's when she made a choice, not to abandon the friendship, but to set graceful boundaries. She came up with a simple graceful boundaries script she could use without guilt. 1. Acknowledge, "I'm so glad you called. I have about 20 minutes before I need to head out." 2. Redirect, "I'd love to hear about something that's been going well for you lately." 3. Exit politely, "I'm going to get going now, but let's talk again soon." By stating her time limit upfront, gently shifting the focus, and ending on a warm note, she kept the connection without letting it drain her dry. She also began re-evaluating other relationships in her life using a simple question: do I feel lighter or heavier after spending time with this person? If the answer was consistently heavier, she knew it was time to step back, limit the frequency of interactions, or adjust her role in that relationship. The change was immediate. Fenola noticed she had more emotional space, more patience for the people she truly wanted to invest in, and more energy to pour into her own passions. She realized that saying no to certain dynamics wasn't unkind, it was necessary for her well-being. Because here's the truth, you can love people without carrying the full weight of their lives on your back. Healthy relationships lift you up, unhealthy ones keep you stuck. And once you learn to tell the difference, you can approach each connection with intention, not obligation. Of course, even when you've cleared your home, lightened your calendar, trimmed your digital clutter, and set boundaries in your relationships, there's still one place where chaos can hide, and it's the hardest one to face. Because the last clutter to clear? It's the one inside your own head. Step 5. Declutter your mind, the peace blueprint. Even after you've cleared your home, trimmed your commitments, silenced your phone, and set healthy boundaries, there's one kind of clutter that can still follow you everywhere. You carry it in your head. This is mental clutter, and for many people over 60 in the United States, it can be the heaviest of all. Mental clutter isn't about physical objects, it's about the thoughts, worries, and unfinished business that keeps circling in your mind. It might be regrets about choices you made years ago, projects you started but never finished, or old grudges you've held onto for so long they feel like part of your identity. It's the quiet hum in the background of your thoughts, reminding you of everything you should have done, should be doing, or should resolve. For Fenola Rae, mental clutter took the form of an unfinished memoir. 15 years earlier, she had started writing her life story, full of family tales, teaching memories, and moments by the Maine shoreline. She imagined handing it to her grandchildren one day. But life happened. She wrote in bursts, then let the pages gather dust. Each time she walked past the desk drawer holding that half-finished manuscript, she felt a mix of guilt and frustration. One day, I'll get back to it, she told herself. But that one day never came. The truth was, the book had stopped being a joyful project and started being a mental weight. It wasn't feeding her creativity anymore, it was feeding her sense of failure. And that's when she decided to try something she now calls the one-page release. Here's how it works. 1. Write it all down. Take one sheet of paper and list every nagging thought in your head. Don't organize, don't filter, just spill it out. This could be call the insurance company, fix the leaky faucet, apologize to Ruth, or finish my memoir. 2. Choose one. Circle a single item that feels doable today. Take action on it immediately, even if it's just a small step. Call the number. Throw away the broken item. Send the text. 3. Release the rest. Once that one task is complete, give yourself permission to set the other items aside, mentally and emotionally, until the next day. No more carrying all of it in your mind at once. When Finola used this method, she finally faced her memoir. She asked herself honestly if she still wanted to finish it. The answer was no. And instead of keeping it as a silent burden, she chose to let it go. She saved the few chapters she loved in a keepsake folder, then released the rest. The very next week, she set up her easel by the window and began painting again, something she hadn't done in years because she always told herself she should be working on the book. That single decision didn't just free her time, it freed her mind. Here's the thing, letting go of mental clutter doesn't mean you failed. It means you've made space for what matters most to you now. When you clear your mind, you open up room for peace, creativity, and joy to come back in. And when your thoughts feel lighter, everything else in life feels lighter too. Because the truth is, the heaviest clutter isn't in your home, it's in your head. And you have the power to clear it. When Finola first began this journey, she didn't realize how many layers of clutter were shaping her days. She thought clearing a few shelves might help her feel lighter. Instead, she uncovered something far more powerful, a complete shift in the way she lived. Her home is now calm without being sterile. The kitchen counter greets her each morning with nothing but her favorite mug and the soft smell of freshly brewed coffee. Her bedside table holds only a lamp, one novel she's actually reading, and a small dish for her glasses, no more teetering stacks of books or tangled chargers. Her morning starts slowly, with sunlight streaming through the windows and no rush to get anywhere she doesn't truly want to be. Her afternoons are open for painting, walking by the harbor, or catching up with friends who bring laughter, not drama. Even her phone feels lighter, buzzing only for calls and messages that matter. Her calendar now reflects her priorities, not her obligations. Instead of squeezing in one more commitment just because, she leaves space for rest, spontaneity, and joy. She's no longer pulled into every group, every event, or every course. The people she spends time with leave her feeling nourished instead of drained. And maybe most importantly, her mind is clear. The old weight of unfinished projects, long-held grudges, and constant mental to-do lists has been replaced with quiet confidence. She no longer feels the pressure to keep up with everything and everyone. She's learned that the world won't fall apart if she says no, and her own world becomes more peaceful when she does. This isn't about living with nothing. It's about living with what truly supports the life you want now. Overwhelm isn't a permanent part of aging, it's a signal. A signal that it's time to release what no longer fits, to loosen your grip on the unnecessary, and to make room for the moments that matter. So if even one of these ideas made you breathe a little easier, hit like, share this with a friend over 60, and subscribe, because your next chapter should feel lighter, freer, and deeply yours.